Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you out there. I know I always open all of my shows the exact same way because I still think it's super cool that no matter where we are in the world or no matter what time zone we're in, we can all come together at one time in one place and have amazing conversation. And today here on Caff-AI Chats, we have Olivier Gomez. He is coming to us from across the ocean. We'll let him do his own introduction here in just a moment. But I just wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you to everyone who's out there. If you are watching on Team Live, then most certainly leave comments and share with us where you are located. And if you are on Team Replay, let us know that as well with hashtag Team Replay. I'm joining with my cup of coffee this morning. I'm here in Houston, Texas. Before we do full introductions, Olivier, tell us where you are located.
Yeah, so I'm located in France. So we're gonna do the whole interview in French. No, I'm kidding. Bonjour tout le monde, à tous les Français. Yes, I'm located in France. I live in the south of France. My company is headquartered in Paris. And yeah, I've been living in multiple countries. Actually, I was counting. I am now at 63 countries that I have visited, you know. So yeah, it's quite good. And I have a target, which is to reach 100. So that's I'm actually kind of, you know, I love to travel, and but right now my family, my home is in France.
I love that. Well, that's a whole nother conversation that maybe we can get to. But before we do that, I want to just, you know, Olivier and I are both obviously on here on LinkedIn. He has been is a top voice, and we had connected through just conversations that we had here on LinkedIn. But this man he's recognized as a global expert. He's a pioneer in the AI and automation space. You know, a lot of times we will interchange AI and automation, when in reality, a lot of the solutions that we have used previously in the past are built around automation, but automation falls under the AI umbrella. And so we sometimes interchange those words to describe some of the technologies we're leveraging today. But this man has had tremendous amounts of experience in this space. Not only is he an advisor, but he actually coaches and consults organizations. So he helps in making recommendations, and he helps in the trenches, helping them to receive value from those recommendations. So I'm going to do him a complete disservice because he can do his own introduction far better than what I can. But I'm so super excited to have you here. And I would love for you to share a little bit more about, you gave us a quick intro as to the different countries, and I want to dive into that as well later. But I would love for you to take it over and just do your own introduction, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for that. So, so I think it's important here, given all the noise that we have since since March 20th. Are you okay?
Sorry. I opened up the, so for those of you that don't know, usually I'm pretty good with technology, but for some reason I opened up the LinkedIn view so I could see if comments were coming in, and I didn't hit the mute button. So I apologize.
That's totally okay. So as I was saying, there's a lot of noise around AI, and one of the things that is really important for me is to try to cut through that noise. And one of the best way to do that is to be as agnostic as possible when it comes to technology, right? So I know it is very tempting to talk about, you know, all the tools, the latest new shiny object out there. But one of the things that I do, either when I help as you know, consultant, when we implement a tangible project for clients, is to actually put the technology on the side for a little bit and to try to focus on what I consider is the most important, which is to understand the problem or the opportunity that we are trying to solve, so that we can correctly identify, you know, what use case we want to implement here. So one of the things that we do a lot, right, is first of all, understand where the company that we are working with is at when it comes to their transformation, right? So AI is part of the bigger digital transformation. And we have, I would say, two kind of company profile. Those that already know exactly what they want. So they have already done some homework. They've done some internal and very often helped by external company assessment. So they know pretty much, where and how and why they want to roll out AI and automation in their company. And you have, I would say, another profile of company, which is they are a bit lost, right? At all levels, they know they need AI. They are being told they need AI. They know they have to do that so that they can basically, survive ultimately, right? Versus competition and potentially leapfrog competition to take market share, but they are not really sure, right? So those are the two kind of companies. And frankly, if you go into the consumer space, it's also the same, right? Either you know exactly what you want or you're a bit lost. So we help both. If the company knows exactly what they want, then we help them solution, we help them implement, we help them make the right decision, select the right technology, find the right skills, and ultimately, what I'm really focusing on, as you rightly said, is the outcome, is the impact, is the value. Because we do all of this because ultimately we want technology to help us. We want technology to help with a lot of repetitive and manual work that we are trying to get rid of, to improve the customer satisfaction, the employee satisfaction, improve quality, reduce human error, improve the speed, and very often all of that, when you aggregate, helps with get more revenue. Those that are lost, we help them do a 360-degree assessment and identify where it makes sense to deploy technology, because very often, and it's still the case, unfortunately, a large number of AI projects today, unfortunately, do not have proper return on investment, simply because if you don't take the time to understand, analyze, and identify, in which direction you want to run, you might end up running really fast, but in the wrong direction.
Well, when you describe the two types of organizations that you tend to work with, I've come across what I would designate as a third type of organization, which is they're just adopting new technologies, whether that's AI or automation. They're just adopting because they feel like they need to. They've got, and ultimately, regardless of what category they fall into, which, we might could discuss whether you agree. Well, not we might could. We could discuss whether you agree with me on the third one, but it's just that they just don't have a strategy. So they'll buy all of these solutions, right, with no particular strategy because they feel like they need to jump on the bandwagon. So they're not afraid, but they're also not sure of what they need either. They're that third component, that third designated group that just goes in and just buys without any strategy at all. And then they look at the fact that they've spent all this money on new technology. They're not leveraging it in a means to actually get an effective return on investment on it. And they probably have overlapping solutions. So their people don't know which solution to use or how to use it most effectively. So you have this internal chaos and noise that they've created. Would you agree with that?
Yes, fully aligned. I put them in the first category, meaning they know what they want, but actually they don't really know, right? They think they know, but they don't really know. And why? Because first, mistake number one, falling in love with technology. So they find a product, or they interact with a product company that is doing a very good job at articulating how wonderful their product is, and then they fall in love with that technology. They buy it, but then they end up with a hammer looking for a nail, right? So the point is, that's a typical mistake. And I've seen company, buying very expensive product, so very large capex investment, and then trying to justify it by running around looking for opportunities to justify, to look for ROI, right? So this is upside down. It's a very typical issue, and it's, I would say, because we are human. And we fall in love with very cool stuff. We want it. We want to deploy it everywhere. And then we're like, okay, wait a minute. What can I do with that? I was told by the sales guy that I can do all those amazing stuff, but unfortunately, it does not apply to me. The other aspect here is what I call the bottom-up approach, right? So they don't have a end-to-end consolidated view of what they are trying to achieve. They don't correctly prioritize, what needs to be done, and they end up having small projects, pockets of projects scattered all over the place. And it's not really going to, materialize all the way up into the P&L. It stays at the bottom of the organization, and it typically stays at the POC level. And those are the companies that are basically having difficulty to scale. They have difficulty to scale because they have rolled out their technology in the wrong place. This is very typical. So I'm fully aligned with you.
Yeah. So when you work with an organization, what's one of the first things that you do? Because ultimately in both of those categories, which we defined that my designated category, oh, look at that. Look at the, I don't know how I created that. But what I designated as a third category really falls into your first. So in those two categories, ultimately, they just don't have a strategy, right? So now you go in and you try to help them in this more of a top-down approach versus a bottom approach, creating this strategy. But that can be a bit overwhelming. So how do you go in and work with it, start off with an organization? What's some of the first things you do in order to really help them to maximize either what they've already invested in or to start to look at what they should invest in?
Yeah. So the first point, which is sometimes very frustrating for clients, is that we don't talk about tools and technology. We don't want to, although that's what they want to hear. What cool tool do you have to show? I say, I have nothing. Right? I want to talk about your business. I want to understand your objectives. I want to understand your strategy. I want to understand, your goals. I want to understand basically what you are trying to achieve in terms of business, so that we can understand what technology can do for you. So it always starts with an understanding. I call that top down, instead of bottom up. Understanding top down. What are the goals? Typically, a company has a strategy. It is going to be over 3 years, 5 years, and it's pretty much always the same: grow revenue, reduce cost, improve customer satisfaction, bring innovation, all of that, right? So the idea is, once we understand that strategy, of course, we need to interact with the critical resources, which are the leaders, the decision makers, and the experts. But what we do, and that's really important, we are in 2024. We have a data-driven approach. What does that mean? It means that nowadays, a lot of companies have rolled out systems. They have platforms. They have workflow. They have operational data. They have transactional data. They have HR data. And all, using AI, we can use all those data to actually analyze what's happening inside the company and identify where we have the biggest opportunity. Biggest opportunity is typically by the size of the impact. So if I'm going to be very direct, if you are looking for reducing your cost, a 10K savings versus a $10 million savings, where you want to go, right? If you are trying to improve a given product, you need to understand if that new feature, that AI enabled feature that you are going to implement inside your product will help you gain market share, and by how much. If you are looking for revenue, if you want to change or upgrade the customer experience, you want to really make sure that this will allow you to upsell, cross-sell, or get new clients, right? So we really try to look at it top down. We have obviously the regular interaction with human, but we also have the non-human side of the assessment here, which is give us access to all your data. By the way, even if your data is a bit ugly, meaning it's unstructured, it's incomplete, we are using algorithm to make sense of the data. Sometimes client cannot make sense of their own data. We are using these algorithms that we have to make sense of the data, and to be able to come back with very precise analysis and understanding of where are the pockets of opportunity. We are able to understand the size of the impact. We are able to also do, and that's really important, mapping those identified opportunity to existing use case. So, hey, you have this pocket of activity here that we can potentially tackle with AI and automation. And by the way, did you know that there's 5 use cases out there that have been, already deployed by, those companies? We know it works. And, this is a very low risk approach because you are leveraging a use case. Yes, you are running behind versus some of your competitor, but the good news is we can take those use cases, we can implement that in your environment, and you can basically close the gap on those without taking too much risk because we know it works. We also have situation where we are identifying an opportunity, and this is something where we don't have a use case because this is something that is at the edge of the technology where the customer wants to build IP and they want to differentiate themselves versus competition, and they are willing to take a bit more risk, right? So we have all kinds of opportunity that we discover. We put them on the map, and we basically let the customer, the company, the leaders work with us so we can prioritize what makes sense, right? How much risk they are willing to take, what opportunity we found, and how does that map versus their company long-term strategy? How would it help, move the needle on some of the key KPI and some of the key goals they have already decided on, right? So this is the kind of things we do.
So I'd like to tackle this whole concept of data, because the reality is that organizations probably collect way more data than they can even know what to do with. And one of the things you said was, even if they have bad data or they don't know really, they haven't made any use of data. How many times, because I can tell you what my experience is, but I'd love to know how many times do you, when you're going into an organization, do you see that they have either no data strategy or little data strategy, maybe not good data strategy?
Yeah, so you have the whole spectrum here, right? So, and it really depends on how big and how old the company is. To be fair, 100 years old company will have a lot more legacy versus, a startup that is starting with, a greenfield and was created 6 months ago, obviously, right? So if we talk about, fairly sizable company, they will have a whole bunch of legacy. And they're going to have pockets of their company where they are, quite okay with data. They're on top of their data. They have a lake. They have data management in place. And then you're going to have other pockets of the company where, it's not that nice. Sometimes it can even be very ugly. And you can go as well, as far as there's areas where data is not consolidated. Some of our partners call that the dark side of the moon, which means that not everything is correctly, collected, correctly consolidated. So you have the whole spectrum from, I have very clear, very well structured, very complete data for this type of activity. Then I have in the middle some sort of a lake with some data, but it's incomplete, it's ugly, it's unstructured. And then I have other area where I don't have a lake, I don't have data collection, I'm using spreadsheet, I'm using email, and it's a whole mess, right? So that's the whole spectrum we find. And obviously companies are trying to consolidate, to transition, to transform, to bring everything together. And it is a challenge. The larger the company, the larger the size of the data that they are producing on a daily basis, the more difficult it is to achieve that goal, right?
Yep. Agreed. Well, I was going to say too, a lot of the legacy companies, the larger Fortune 500 companies, those are the ones that probably have attempted a good data strategy, but they just have so much data on legacy systems. And for those of you that don't know, legacy systems could be, mainframes. And like, for example, a lot of the banks, a lot of the larger data-driven organizations, they still thrive on mainframes within their environment. Those are what we consider legacy systems, or just outdated legacy network structures, right? So the way they have structured their data centers could be a little bit outdated. So going from collecting data from one server to the next could be, and then they have outdated software. So maybe they are softwares that they've created themselves, or they're softwares that are not supported as much. So retrieving data from them sometimes tends to be a little bit tedious. So when we talk about legacy, it could involve several different descriptions of what legacy essentially means, but it's really retrieving. On the newer companies, it's a lot easier because, as you said, there's not a whole lot of legacy. So it's new systems, new processes. They're already less data. So they've already got their data contained in usually a consolidated area. So it's a bit easier. What do you think are some of the most common challenge? Let's say the most common. What do you think is the most common challenge that you see with organizations today? Taking AI aside, when we're trying to focus on an initiative, what do you think maybe the common thread is among many of them?
Yeah. So that's a very broad question here. I would say the typical issues that we see that are very well known are related to, first of all, trying to consolidate and standardize the people, process, and technology aspect of the company. Okay, so, and you can understand why. So it's not just having old system or old processes, but it's also a business is a living entity. And when there is an acquisition, when there is a merger, when there is, a company that basically acquires or moves to a new geography, you end up having lack of consistency inside the company. And sometimes the way the employee are working in Costa Rica versus Malaysia versus US, although they are supposed to do exactly the same, they are not. They have the same goal, they have the same objective, but when you go into the details of the tool they use, the process they follow, and ultimately, the people data aspect of it, it's all different. So in order, and why is this important? Because when you have a top-down approach and you come up with a use case that you want to deploy, let's say I want to do AI against that process, I want to do automation against that process, you assume top-down that everyone is going to follow that process and work the same way. But as you start, scanning across, I don't know, either multiple countries, multiple business unit, or I don't know, in the US, sometimes multiple states, you will realize that you don't have one implementation plan. You end up having, 5 or 10 implementation plan, because the environment you are targeting, although it's supposed to be the same, is very different, right? So this is a very common issue that we see, and that is basically slowing down the implementation of technology, which is the lack of standardization, the lack of consolidation, and ultimately the lack of transformation, because the business keeps running behind. Let me explain one concept that is very important. The rate of change of technology is much faster than the rate of change of an organization.
Yes.
That's basically a law, right? It's called the Martech law. We know that the rate of change of technology is exponential, while the rate of change of an organization is logarithmic. What does that mean? It means that organizations are always going to run behind the technology, and the gap will keep increasing until they decide to reset the organization, right? So by default, no matter how good the organization is, no matter how good the leaders, the people, the direction, the technology is running much faster than what the organization can do and move and evolve, and you always end up having those gaps. And when you multiply that by a number of geographies, number of countries, number of business units, it's normal that it becomes a challenge. It becomes a difficult aspect of the implementation. That makes sense.
Yeah. So really, essentially, what you're talking about is really helping organizations with a transformation strategy, so that they're not just adopting new technologies, but they're also adopting new cultures that enable that technology to be successful within their organization. Which, when we talk about building or transforming organizations to do that, it is people and processes, because sometimes we, the people, get in the way because of the processes that have been established in order to and that therein prevents the success of the technology implementation. I think you can buy the greatest and best technology out there, but if you don't have the people and process in place to actually shift their, allow them to adopt that strategy of that new technology effectively, you've lost, and you've lost your return on investment.
Yes, and if I may, so that's the first typical issue we find. The second typical issue, which is again a non-technology issue, is to make sure that people understand that AI is good news. To make sure that there's no fear in the system.
I like that.
Typically, and pretty much everywhere, you have a large amount of people that are concerned that they might lose their job, they might end up doing something they don't want to do, so they will maybe retain knowledge and not always be willing to collaborate properly, and all of that is because we have let too much fear in the system, and we don't spend the time articulating that this is good news. We don't spend the time articulating that this is going to be good for the company, but also good for the employee as long as they embrace AI. The human augmentation using AI is obviously going to be good news for the company and the company P&L, but it's also going to be good news for the employee because it will boost their overall profile and their market value will go up. Someone who is capable of leveraging using AI is going to be way more productive, is going to deliver way more value to the company, and their market value is going to go up. Someone who is pushing back, not willing to know anything about AI because they don't like it, they are afraid, it's bad news. They will be left on the side, and probably they will be at risk. Probably their market value will go down. So people need to understand, and this needs to be top down from the top leadership. And it should be, hey guys, this is good news. We're gonna train. You're gonna have ChatGPT access, Copilot access. You're gonna be trained on AI. You're gonna stop doing all the boring, repetitive tasks, and you're gonna be using all those tools to do crazy, cool stuff. And ultimately, again, if you put your profile on LinkedIn, you are going to be 30% more expensive. Why? Because you can justify it because you are delivering 10x more value.
I always say that when in sales, so if I talk about just sales and adopting AI technologies, I always say that AI technology should augment and provide you these efficiencies so that you can shift your focus and actually spend more time on the higher value activities, which I think, your video just went out.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, which you should be able to shift your focus on those higher value activities. So when an organization adopts these new technologies, it should give us as employees an opportunity to really start to think outside the box, get creative, and really innovate with new product and service offerings. Or maybe we don't actually provide them as individuals, but we can help build and contribute to those new product and service offerings that really give the opportunity for organizations to see larger revenue streams. I don't know why I'm struggling this morning, but to see larger revenue streams.
Yes, 100%. So let me take an example specifically on, let's say, lead generation type of activity, right? So we've seen, for many years, email campaign, right? Email campaign running. People, it's extremely boring to send, 500 emails. So people have been scripting this for many years. And they have been, basically sending all those emails. And whether you consider this is a good way or a bad way to, generate a qualified lead, that's not the point. The point is, this has been there even before AI. Now with AI, you can obviously mass customize your email so that every email is customized to the profile that you are targeting. And you can go even further, which is, on LinkedIn, and trust me on that, right? You can talk to people, and they are not people. They are AI profile, and they will be, basically qualifying and helping you, and ultimately you will never close a sale with an AI engine. A human has to talk to another human. All you are doing here is use technology, which are, more advanced technology versus just blasting email all over the place to, fill up your funnel. And then you, as a lead gen, you will do the qualification. You, as a sales, you will be closing the deal, right? So I think that instead of saying, I don't like this technology, there's nothing better than a human to close a deal, which I agree with. I think that, we have to see that as, this is happening upstream. It's basically a way to have a bigger funnel. It's basically a way to have a more qualified funnel. It's basically a way to go and touch, a wider audience. It's also a way to send information to your prospect that is way more interesting for him, way more, aligned with what he wants, way more customized and tailored. So everyone wins. Instead of getting this boring email that I know you are sending to 20,000 people, at least you have picked up some stuff from my profile and you tell me something that might be interesting. You have picked up something from my website, and that helps. And ultimately, yes, I end up talking to someone who knows, and I'm going to close the deal with a human. So for me, all of that is all good news. Instead of being afraid of those and say, no, I'm old-fashioned, I pick up the phone, I talk to a human, I would say instead, understand what this brings to you. And, this will never, ever replace a good conversation between two humans.
No, I agree. And I think if we take that mentality, if we really understand that it's there to augment us, I think we can give up that fear and realize that it's just here to help us be more successful, more efficient, and really get more activity done in a much more fast way so that we can focus on the areas where the human is still going to be valuable and important. Okay, so we've done a lot of talking about some of the services you're offering, but you're way more than just your company. You've also become an author, you're a speaker. I mean, tell us a little bit about the book, the A to Z Generative AI, and just some of the other things that you're doing outside of your work specifically with organizations.
Yes. So I think what is important to understand here is that, above and beyond selling services to company, there's something that is very important for me, which is what I would call education. And by education, I mean making sure that the knowledge that we have, because we are doing a lot of those projects, we are interacting with a lot of people, a lot of customers in many countries, we can take a subset of that knowledge and basically give it away for free in a form of, educating people. So for me, it's really important. Last week, I give you an example. Last week, I was in Togo, in Africa, in Lomé. Lomé is the main city, the capital of Togo. And they organized what they call the Week of AI. It's a French-speaking country. So, I'm French, so I can cover that country.
Yeah.
And they organized their a Week of AI, where obviously it's everything about AI, but it's really targeted to making sure we can use some of those solutions to help the countries. For example, in agriculture, in education, or with their healthcare system, right? So you probably know that in Africa, there's a huge amount of young people. They are very hungry. They want to basically, find all the knowledge they can. They are very capable, and they want to basically contribute. And when you give them knowledge, when you share your experience, right? You are basically creating the next generation AI expert, the next generation companies and startup. And for me, this is something that I really enjoy doing. That's why together with 𝐀𝐈 𝗔𝗂𝐄𝐝, we wrote this book where we try to consolidate a lot of those concepts, a lot of those tips, a lot of those advice that we give to our clients, put them in the book and make sure people have access to it, right? Because again, we see so many mistakes, we see so many project failing, we see so many people running really fast in the wrong direction, that we said, okay, why don't we take all of that and consolidate and pack it into a book, so that people, of course, they are not going to learn how to, write an algorithm, how to, fine tune an LLM in details. This is not a technical book as such. This is a book that is targeted to explaining concept, articulating the value, and, making sure people understand how to start, and making sure that they don't do basic mistakes, right? So the book, or all the conferences that I do, are all targeted to the to that goal, which is, let's make sure we help people learn from all the scars and all the pain and all the mistakes that we've made, so that they don't have to do it again. I cannot hear you.
Sorry, did you go to Africa just to promote the book, or did you go
not the book? Actually, I almost did not. I mean, I did speak a little bit about the book, and of course, but the whole point there was to educate the local economic environment and ecosystem. So we had people from university, kids going to universities. We had people running businesses. We had people from the government, and basically we spent the whole week with a bunch of other French-speaking AI experts, cover all aspects of AI, not just the technical part, but also the need for governance, the ethical part, and also what it can bring to the different sector. Obviously, agriculture being very important in Africa. Education being very important in Africa, and the healthcare system being very important in Africa. And people have learned how to also build very small AI system. So, for example, how can I use AI to optimize my irrigation system, so that I can basically waste less water when trying to water plants and grow food, right? So this is an example of things that we have covered.
And I think that's what we need to spend a lot of time focusing on. For those that fear AI, look at all the good that AI is doing. There is so much goodness out there. And I think that Africa's this untapped market of as you mentioned, hungry kids who want to excel, who want to contribute, who want to learn, who are going to make a difference as we continue to build out more of these AI technologies, because they have this desire and need to not only contribute to the world, but also to their economies within Africa itself. So I think it's an up and coming nation as it relates to AI, just based on their desire to really make a difference and show people that Africa is a place that can make a name for themselves in this new world.
And the good news, and we're in 2024, right? So the good news is all you need is a laptop and an internet connection.
Yep.
You can leverage all the power of the cloud, the tools, that a large company is using in Microsoft, in AWS environment, is going to be the same as what a young kid, in his bedroom, anywhere in the world, is going to be using. So the great thing here is that the barrier for entry in those environments to do business is very low. All you need is an internet connection, and maybe with $50 a month, you can have a whole ecosystem of very powerful tool in the cloud and deliver services that are almost as amazing as multi-billion-dollar company.
Yep. I think it's going to be exciting to see where we go in the remaining months in 2024 and then 2025. So if considering that we're getting close to, needing to wrap this up, and all the things that you're doing right now, what are you the most excited about in these upcoming months as it relates to AI?
So there's a number of aspects here. So first of all, from a pure technology standpoint, and although I'm trying really hard not to fall in love with technology, sometimes there's a number of things that are happening
Yeah.
The whole AI agent ecosystem, which means that, we're going to have, and this is what people need to understand, right? AI is not just one AI. It's many, many, many AIs that are going to collaborate and communicate together. So AI is not just ChatGPT. Everyone will be able to build their own AI specialized in their area. And the key here to understand is it's the data that is going to make the whole difference. So if you have a unique set of data, because you're working in an environment and this data is not owned by anyone else, you can create an AI solution that is going to be unique in the world. And that might, for that point solution, might compete with, the largest AI system in the world. So it's very exciting to see that, although, we are afraid that a couple of companies will have, AGI and will control the world. The reality is the data is going to make the difference. And if you are sitting on top of a unique set of data, you can create an AI that is going to be unique, and you are going to be a very key contributor in this overall AI ecosystem, right? So that's number one. It means that everyone can find a spot where they can be the best of the world in their space. That's really exciting. It means that everyone has a chance to be successful, number one. Number two, what we see as well is that there's a number of group of people that are starting to look at AI, and there's what I call this edge AI trend, which means that yes, sometimes you're gonna need this monster of an AI to do this, and by the way, this is how much energy. So the ESG component of the AI is, looked at. So making sure that, you right size your AI to make sure that, we don't waste energy, to make sure that, we are doing the right thing with the data in terms of privacy, and to make sure that whatever the AI is taking as a decision is managed, control all the risk, all the governance, all the potential mistake that AI will make. And we already see a couple of examples. All of that is starting to become, very key topics. There's the AI Act in Europe that was just passed, and we are going to see, bottom line, frameworks. We are going to see governance, so that ultimately people will be less afraid of AI, and we are going to see control mechanism to ensure that when something goes wrong, it's all under control. This is very important and very exciting.
I love that, because we all fear this unethical AI, irresponsible AI, because of some of the things we've already seen with some of the deep fakes here in the US, right? I mean, it can be scary, but this is where I love that we're all moving towards this more ethical and more responsible AI, so that we don't fear it, that we maybe not embrace it with open arms, but at least embrace it with caution, and that we learn to leverage it in a way that it augments us rather than replaces us. All right. So I appreciate you being here today. I'd love for you to share how we can best engage or connect with you, Olivier.
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn quite a bit. As you said, I'm a top voice there. I'm trying to share as much information as possible to people. I have my own personal website. So Olivier-Gomez.com, where I consolidate all the activity I do, and obviously my company IAC.AI. That's the company where we basically drive and push services to clients. And again, the best way to reach out to me is probably to drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive, and I would be more than happy to have a private conversation with you guys.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here today. You've shared a wealth of knowledge. I've learned a lot. I know everyone who's listening, whether you're on Team Live or Team Replay, I know that you guys have learned a lot. I appreciate everyone out there today. It's Wednesday, so happy hump day. And I'm wishing everyone a good rest of your day and a phenomenal remainder of your week. Reminder that we're here every Wednesday at 9 a.m. on Wednesday mornings, Central Standard Standard Time, which is obviously Houston, Texas. And so come back and see us every week here unless I'm on vacation. Otherwise, I want to wish everyone again a good rest of your day. Olivier, thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to actually try something new. I tried it yesterday. And as we end, I am going to turn on some music so it's not so quiet and weird.